Well, Rick, we've been out at the finish line. This is going to be day 3. First team came in on Thursday. Just wanted to do a recap with you over the previous 24 hours and talk about the finish. It's looking a little different this year than we've ever seen.
It is, and so you're actually going to test my memory from the last 24 hours? That's going to be a bit dodgy.
Well, we had a number of our first solos come in. So Alan Jefferson, please don't ever pick a human up at the end of your solo. Yeah.
No, that usually doesn't end well for either party. Yeah, Al's the first solo male winner, overall winner from Australia since, I think, Jerry Tatry back in the 90s.
Yep. I think it was 98.
That sounds about
maybe
right.
99.
And Jerry was a 3-time winner. Hopefully we see Al back again to maybe make it number 2. He had a heck of a good ride. He put out a performance that I think surprised a lot of us.
I think it surprised him.
Yeah, he was a very talented racer. There's no question. But, you know, he DNF'd in Durango, a couple years ago.
Was that early?
Yeah. And so I think it was. And so coming back, obviously he learned a lot and prepared much better, prepared differently, and came out and just smoked. And he held a really super steady, great pace, and then kind of turned on the juice at the end when he knew that Nicole was close by and he felt like he could catch her.
And he was dealing with a lot of physical issues. He's losing his neck. Compare that to Svata Bozak, who came in and just looked like he'd ridden around the block.
Yeah, Svata looked like he came. Svata's the second place finisher in the men and first in the under 50 category. Svata literally looked like he just got back from a club ride. I mean, he looked fantastic.
He did, lots of energy. I think maybe he could have picked me up.
Well, he picked up his bike, no problem. I mean, and certainly was able to give out a loud cheer. So, yeah, Svata looked fantastic again. I think that was his 4th RAAM, 4th finish, and looked outstanding.
One thing I wanted to point out, too, Alan Jefferson, 50 to 59. This is year 2 when the overall winner has been in the 50 to 59 category.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of the odd things about events like RAAM or longer running bicycling events. You know, younger people, while they have lots of they have lots of speed, they don't necessarily have the endurance to sustain over that time period. And when you get up into your, I think, mid to later 40s and early 50s, you're better at controlling your speed and endurance levels and matching them appropriately. And you don't go out too hard. You learn that that's not the way to do it, but you can sustain it for longer periods. And you saw it last year with Leah. You saw it this year with Al. You know, and even when you watched Yuri race, you know, Yuri was, I think his last race, he was 50, I think. And Boyer, I think, was 52 when he last won in 2006. So these guys are, while they're probably not quite at their peak in their low 50s, they're still up at the very top. I think you kind of peak probably in your later 40s, although Christoph would defy every statement I just made. But we have yet to see him hit that age, too.
So how about Nicole? I mean, obviously the person who was really generating so much buzz over the first 3 quarters of the event, and I think she had one of the gutsiest rides I've ever seen.
No doubt. That is one tough lady and an incredibly talented cyclist. She's, in my opinion, I think she's probably the best woman on a bike in the ultra world in many, many years. And that ride she turned in over the past 10 days was stunning. And I think her finish time was 10 days, 4 hours or something like that. She had an injury she suffered late in the race, and she couldn't even walk. She couldn't even really get on. Her crew had to lift her on the bike, and she missed a sub-day finish by only 4 hours. I mean, that is 2 races in a row. I think it was 19 and 22, or yeah, 19 and 20, 18 and 22, that she's won and basically turned in sub-10-day finishes. And she did lead a huge portion of this race.
And that where did and actually Al passed her, and she repassed him.
Yeah, yeah. So Al did pass her, and then she passed him back up, and it could have been a function of sleeping, but they were still riding neck and neck, and it was only after the injury where Al finally just passed her, and that likely would have happened anyway. I think Al looked faster on the bike as a whole, but Nicole was just able to sit on the bike longer. She takes shorter breaks. Either way, she is one of the grittiest, toughest women, men, anybody I've ever seen in my life. Like, she is that tough and that talented. I certainly hope she comes back and gives it another run, because although this course is longer and harder than what the record was set on back in the mid-90s, I think if she hits the perfect race, she could break it.
Yeah, just incredible. You know, one of the things that really stood out to me about our solo winners, Svata and Al, I was asking them, how do you feel having such close competition affected you mentally? I mean, having people right there, which we haven't really seen in the solo world in a long time. And they both had the same answer, and I feel like they were totally genuine, which is, I just focused on myself.
Yeah, I think they are not lying, and I think that's a really important thing about RAAM is and you know where you see it the most, as you well know, is early on. You get caught up in everyone else's
Absolutely.
race, and you're like, oh, that guy's going, I got to go too, or that woman's going, I'm going to go too. And what you end up doing is riding yourself right into the ground and out of the race very early on. And I think the people who are better capable of controlling that early urge to race and just riding the ride that they planned end up doing better at the end. And I know, I was talking
Mark Pattinson.
Yeah, Mark Pattinson's your perfect guy. Richard Volbrett, some of these guys who they don't ride slow, because that's not a fair term, but they don't go all out. They wait till roughly the Mississippi River to kind of turn it into a race. And I talked to Al's crew chief. Al said he didn't even want to know where anyone was until the very end. And then he wanted to know. He wanted to know where people were. Because I think those last 200, 300, 400 miles, pretty beat up, he needed a lift, he needed something. And so he wanted to know what was around him. So I understand that. And I think that does provide a bit of motivation. And someone who races and is as competitive as you get, myself, I am kind of the same way. I do what I want to do, but there's always a little bit in you that says, I want to go chase that person down, or I don't want to get caught.
So something I wanted to point out over the last 24 hours was Tim Skipper coming in with Team Skipper. That's finish number 20 for him. It's the most finishes, I believe, of anyone in the history of the race.
Yeah, so,
40-year history, he's finished half.
Half of them. Yeah, and that's, so people don't realize what an amazing feat that is. I mean, it's hard enough just to get to the start line of this race. And Tim's done it 20 times and finished 20 times. And people will say, well, yeah, but it's team, not solo. Because Rob Kish has 20 starts, 19 finishes. And so Tim eclipsed that, and next year, presumably, Tim will pass the overall start number. But, the getting to the start line as a solo and a team are very different things, just like the racing's very different. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in putting a team on the road and keeping that together. So being here 20 times, finishing 20 times, is an absolutely remarkable feat. And the crazy thing is we have another racer, Marcio Milan, who's still out racing, who's about to finish his 16th RAAM. And he's coming from Brazil. So you add in extra layers of international travel to get here. It's a really a special thing that these people come back year after year and do this.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of Skipper's teams that he's put together. Multiple tandem teams, 8 tandem teams. That is huge crew, lots of vehicles. I mean, the coordination that goes into those is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think the one other thing that Tim does consciously that's pretty interesting is he always tries to bring new riders and new crew into the RAAM group. So he actively tries to bring people that have never experienced it out to have the experience that he's had for 20 years.
Yeah, he did that with a tandem partner at Worlds last fall.
Yeah, and so that's kind of it's a good thing. It's a really good thing for the sport. It keeps the sport healthy. I wish more people took that attitude and tried to build more on, hey, I got a buddy who rides a bike. Maybe I'll bring him out and give this a shot. It's kind of how I got into it. My dad raced, and I was like, oh, well, sure, I'll go out and try this. What the heck, you know?
So who do we have coming in today?
So the next team coming in is Enjoy the Ride. They should be in here shortly. They're at Odenton, so they're probably about an hour away. And then I think later tonight we are going to see the team For Children, Team Steinberg Coaching. And then right around midnight we'll see Aligned Alliance come in. So those are the teams coming in. We have solos projected to come in about 11 o'clock or so, or take that back, about 10 o'clock. The tricky thing about solos and predictions is we can't predict if they sleep or what they do. So generally, if we see a 9 or 10 o'clock prediction, we're going to push that back at least a couple hours because we know they're probably going to sleep. That being said, we should have the first American coming in.
I was going to say that's also a good race between Phil Fox and Jim Trout, and I love that they're both animal last names.
That is kind of funny. So yeah, we have the first American coming in either really late tonight or early tomorrow morning. It'll be either Jim Trout or Phil Fox. Jim is a RAAM veteran. He's finished once before. Phil's a RAAM rookie. It's a very tight race. They are in the kind of race where if you look at the tracker, one might be 20 miles ahead of the other, but they're basically a sleep break apart. And so all it takes is for someone to sleep and someone not to sleep, and those leads flip. So it's going to be a little game of cat and mouse, and I can assure you they may tell you they're riding their own race. They're watching each other because they want to be the first American here. And then not far behind them is Kurt Matzler, who's also a rookie, and then Les Crooks, who's also an American. So we have 3 Americans coming on the next 4 racers, solo racers.
And have you seen a finish kind of backstacked like this? We have a lot of people coming in Sunday during the day and a lot of people who are going to be finishing Monday, kind of pushing the mandatory cutoff.
Yeah, we have a really unusual year this year, and I'm not sure why. I can't put my finger on anything because the weather as a whole has been pretty good. There's just not a lot to pinpoint why things have been pushed around. But normally today we would be having finishes about every hour or two. And same thing tomorrow, and then Monday would be a very light day. But what it's looking like now is today's going to be a very light day. Sunday is going to be extraordinarily busy, like finishes every hour. And then Monday, it's hard. It's a little hard to tell. But there could be more than usual trickling in on Monday, too. So very unusual. And it looks like Valerio Zamboni, who is on pace for his 8th finish, which puts him in a very select group of solo racers. Very few, I think, Kish, Danny Chu. I don't know that there's any more than that. There's only a handful of 8-time finishers, and Valerio should join that group. He is due in Monday morning.
You know, I'd love if you just touched on the kind of after-event parties that are going on this year. A little different format, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I know we're getting 3 more blasts from the ship.
Let's hope they don't blast us. Oh, nope, he just stepped away, so we're not going to get blasted quite yet.
They stopped. They're not leaving.
Right. So, yeah, so we had to change our formatting for our post-event stuff. You know, we used to do it at a banquet room, and it was seated, and we had to have reservations, and it was kind of complicated and difficult to do, and it pushed a lot of teams over to the next day, so they might miss it, they might miss flights. And so what we really wanted to do was 2 things. We wanted to make it so that racers could come and go as they freely chose, and kind of engage the town and the public some more. So what we did is we worked with some restaurants up the street, and we're going to kind of have a street party. So you'll be up there emceeing, interviewing some of the racers as they hang out and come and go. The public is fully welcome to come join. It's going to be at the end of the street, kind of right in front of Iron Rooster, and Middleton's right up there. And we'll be hanging out, and racers will be hanging out, and the public can come see. It's really the first time the public's been allowed to come join in and see what's happening too. So we're hoping to engage the community a little bit as well.
All right, well, Rick, thanks very much for joining us. I know something big is happening Sunday night that you wish had wrapped up last night.
The Stanley Cup playoffs. I am really, really upset at my boys from Colorado. They need to fix that problem and win Sunday night so I can rest easy. And otherwise, it's going to be a really rocky Tuesday.
Sorry, had to bring that up.
Thanks, George. I appreciate that.
All right, we'll see you live streaming as soon as the next team comes in. And thanks very much for tuning in.